So happy to be here today with our guest, Dr. Yonit Arthur, also known as Dr. Yo, the founder of the Steady Coach. Hi.
Hello, Michelle. It is awesome to be here. I was sharing right before we started recording just how many people I send your way. I absolutely love the work you're doing. You just have this way of communicating these concepts in such a clear way. So I hope today that I can do the same about dizziness.
Oh, I am absolutely sure you will. We have a big overlap in our followers here, and I think people will really appreciate this call.
Absolutely.
So just to start off, for anybody who might not know you, can you tell us a little bit about your work and what you do and what you see on a daily basis?
Yeah. So by profession, by training, I'm an audiologist. I specialize in chronic vestibular symptoms, so typically dizziness, but dizziness is a very broad term that encompasses all sorts of symptoms. So everything from depersonalization, derealization, fogginess, feeling off balance, feeling gravitational pulls, eye symptoms like not being able to track moving objects, feeling like you're moving all the time, not being able to track things when you move. I mean, you name it, a lot of things fall under the umbrella. So I work with people full time who are dealing with symptoms like those. And nowadays, I think the most important work I do is I educate people about why these symptoms are just symptoms that can be recovered from, not permanent conditions that require a ton of medical treatment or lifelong management. But I also do obviously coaching in groups and individually as well.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you've checked all the boxes. This is a lot of people are call us about very similar things. So it's nice
Oh,
to see,
absolutely.
right? So here's an audiologist talking about the same things that we talk about from the anxiety side.
Yes, and I think it's going to become extremely clear during this conversation why that is. There's a huge overlap. These things feed each other, and what originally may start as a medical problem often becomes something very similar to an anxiety disorder.
Mm-hmm. So can you walk us through that? So somebody is dizzy, if that comes after a medical condition or if it comes, what do you normally see? Like, how does that manifest at first? Is it
Yeah,
something that's an acute thing, a chronic thing? And
yeah.
then how do you go about that?
Yeah. So often dizziness will start with some kind of medical event. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's an actual serious medical event or just a medical event that affects the inner ear or any of the systems associated with the balance system. So the balance system or the really more the orientation system is pretty complicated, and it involves using information from three sense systems: the eyes, ears, and sense of touch. So any of those systems being disrupted could potentially lead to symptoms of disorientation or balance problems or dizziness. So again, something physical happens often, sometimes not. Sometimes people just have a really bad panic attack or a period of prolonged stress. But
Mm-hmm.
either way, somehow that disrupts how the brain is processing sense information related to the balance system, and this causes dizziness. So this is actually, I just want to emphasize, a completely normal thing. I'm not saying it's desirable or that everyone ends up with a virus that affects the inner ear, but
Mm-hmm.
it's very normal for people to have dizziness sensations when one of those sensory systems is temporarily disrupted. Brains are really smart and they can do something called compensation, meaning the brain can readapt to whatever new baseline we have. So if the actual physical problem, if there was one, goes away, then the brain says, cool, everything's back to normal. I can balance again. Yay.
Mm-hmm.
And if there actually was a permanent change in one of the sensory systems, typically what happens is the brain says, oh, cool, I need to kind of rebalance how I'm using those different sense systems. And then you go back to balancing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the normal course of events. But when you throw certain things into the mix, things that, Michelle, you are very familiar with, they uh, basically cause the brain to enter a cycle that keeps symptoms chronic. So the vast majority of the time when someone has chronic dizziness or related symptoms, it's a brain reason. It is a brain processing reason, no longer related to the original illness or
Mm.
problem that originally set off the symptoms. Does that make sense how I explain that?
100%. Can you tell me a little bit more about the actual diagnoses like PPPD and like what the
Yes.
difference between them are just for all of our audience? I know we talk
Yeah,
about DPDR2. Some people don't even know what that is either.
absolutely. So here's the thing. When someone has physical symptoms, they we do need to make sure there's nothing physically wrong or that needs medical treatment.
Mm-hmm.
That's important because sometimes there's a growth or there's an illness that
Sure.
needs medical treatment. So when we go to the doctor with symptoms like dizziness, which are just very difficult to get to the root of anyway, because so many different things can cause dizziness, doctors are methodically trying to rule out physical problems that might be causing the symptoms. And then when they can't find something, basically at that point they're forced to still give you a diagnosis
Mm-hmm.
because they have to they have to put something in their coding system, and
Right.
they need to have some. And I think, Michelle, also they want to help you. So if you give someone a
A
diagnosis like, okay,
name,
these
there's a
are
name for it.
there's a
Yeah.
name and here's the
Mm-hmm.
treatment protocol I need to follow now. So PPPD, or persistent postural perceptual disorder, vestibular migraine, or VM, Malte-de-Barkmann syndrome, MDDS, and many other symptom-based disorders that I'm not going to name right now, although
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I'll mention them later. Those are the primary three. Those are all symptom-based disorders. They're basically diagnoses that your doctor gives you when they're checking symptoms off of a list because there's nothing physically wrong that explains why you
Mm-hmm.
have symptoms. And I just want to make something clear because this is super important to me. I think your audience is going to be very comfortable with the idea that that anxiety is involved in this process. But I want to be really, really precise about this. This does not mean that it's all in your head or that it's just anxiety and you're just being anxious.
Mm-hmm.
You're actually, with PPPD, vestibular migraine, and MDDS, there is something in your brain that's happening that's causing your sensory systems to not get translated the way that they should. Your brain's not interpreting sense information the way that it should. And that can actually show up on fMRI tests. So we actually know your brain isn't processing this information the way that it should.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that it's a permanent physical lesion medical problem. And the issue with these diagnoses is often it's interpreted that way. Oh, check, 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 check. You have this list of symptoms. Congratulations. You have this diagnosis. And let me look this diagnosis up. Okay, this means you're never going to recover. You're
It's
only be able to
chronic.
manage
There's no
it.
cure. Now what
There's
do
no
I do?
cure.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there's good use in the diagnosis in the sense, basically, to let you know there's nothing actually physically, horribly, irreversibly wrong with you. But past that point, the diagnoses are less meaningful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes so much sense too. And it's tricky because it gets people stuck in this spot that I'll see sometimes. Two spots where people get stuck of like they can't find anything wrong with me to fix. And now that means I'm stuck with dizzy forever. And then we kind of hyperfixate and try harder to solve the problem. So now I have the problem is this is the problem. And when it's viewed in that mindset of like, so now what do I do about it?
That's right. Oh my gosh.
Right?
Totally. And so this could be a problem for any physical symptom. I just want to make
Mm-hmm.
that clear.
Mm-hmm.
This could be true for tinnitus. This could be true for hyperacusis or sound sensitivity, gut problems, chronic pain, you name it, this could happen for any of those. But that being said, I think that symptoms that affect primary sensory systems
Mm-hmm.
and your sense of orientation, so visual, specifically the visual system, the hearing system, and your sense of orientation, uh, tend to be more disorienting, tend to bring the anxiety on harder and faster. And with dizziness in particular, we know there's an automatic anxiety response that happens when you're disoriented. So not oh, I'm anxious, let me worry about this, not that kind of thing. I'm talking about
Yeah.
like automatic existential terror because your body and brain are basically like, where am I in space? I cannot
Mm-hmm.
survive without knowing where I am in space. So it's a survival thing. So in that sense, what you just hinted at, when people start to enter this cycle of fixing, it is much more likely to be intense when people are experiencing the symptoms that I specialize in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Even just naturally speaking, like if you are about to fall down, if you are dizzy, your body reacts. It's not you sitting and ruminating and thinking
That's
and
right.
bringing on anxiety. It's almost like a reflex,
Exactly.
right? Your body enters fight or flight mode for dizzy so that you can, whatever, stop yourself from falling. But now it's just about dizzy. Now it's hooked to dizzy rather than the fall.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Oh, what a beautiful nuanced distinction you just made. So people get confused about that a lot. They think their fears are about the thing that could potentially happen, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not. It doesn't. The brain ends up not differentiating between the feared outcome and the trigger for the feared outcome. So
Yes.
right? So
And how
in
you
other
treat
words,
whatever it is you're fighting. That's just the
right,
danger.
right, exactly. So the brain over time starts to think the dizzy sensations are actually the danger,
Mm-hmm.
not the potential terrible outcome. So before you even have a chance to think about it or worry about it, like when people think anxiety, they think worries, they think, oh, I'm obsessing. And that certainly happens too. And I'm sure we'll talk about that because that is a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
But before that even happens, there's the brain starts automatically, without any conscious effort from you, associating the sensations themselves with a sense of danger. And
Mm-hmm.
again, some of that's automatic and some of that is reinforced over time
Right.
as you continue to suffer from the symptoms and do some of the other things we're going to be talking about, I'm sure.
Right, right. And another thing you were saying, when like you're actually experiencing a real physical thing like IBS or fatigue or tinnitus, things like that. And then when anxiety is part of the equation, right? Let's say you get this diagnosis, then that's also misinterpreted as, oh my God, I better work on my anxiety. Because if I work on my anxiety, then I'll fix this dizzy problem. And if I can
Yes.
just do enough CBT, I'll check to see if it worked, to see if it's gone. And then,
Yes.
or it feels very dismissive, like, oh, it's just anxiety. There's no way this is just anxiety, like as if it's my fault or I did this to bring this
Or it's a
on. And
mental
now it's
health problem
exactly,
specifically. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Okay, so you mentioned about how these diagnoses, and it's funny because that's kind of how this world here works too, where diagnoses are basically you just saying, I have a kind of like a stuck physical sensation, and that's the diagnosis. And trying to get rid of the stuck physical sensation is kind of what keeps the stuck physical sensation there.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, so
Yes.
differentiating between like dizzy as a symptom versus dizzy as the diagnosis versus dizzy as a physical sensation probably overlaps a lot for you.
Yes. Yes. So what ends up happening is initially a lot of this process is really automatic and behind the scenes. And I want to say here, I don't think I've mentioned yet, but I know DARE doesn't necessarily talk about this as much. And I say this with a little bit of hesitation because I don't want people to interpret this to mean they're supposed to go digging into their past and figure out all their stressors. But stress
Mm-hmm.
affects how sensitive your nervous system is, period. So let super simple example. If you've had a really bad day, Michelle, and just really stressed out, you lost your car keys, someone yelled at you, your grocery bag ripped and all your apples fell on the ground and ruined them. If you come home and someone slams a door, you're going to jump higher than
Mm-hmm.
right than
Mm-hmm.
if you had a really calm day. Your system's on edge
Yeah, you're
already.
sensitized.
You're sensitized.
Mm-hmm.
So that sensitization begins before the symptoms become chronic. So when someone has an acute event, they have a physical problem that leads to dizziness or just a panic attack that leads to
Mm-hmm.
dizziness.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't have sensitization, their systems may say, "Ooh, whew, that was a lot. Okay, man, that was a lot, but we're good. We're okay." But if they're sensitized by life stressors, what happen or and other stuff, what happens is the system is already sensitized. It already jumps to start interpreting this as a dangerous thing. And people enter this cycle without even knowing it. But that's when the behaviors begin.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the stuff that you do the most to leverage to get people out of this cycle. So
Right.
here we are. So we have symptoms, we have this sensitization process, this over response, this danger response, this ramping up. And at that point, people try to fix, they try to avoid, they try to research, they try to ruminate, they try to think their ways out of it. And all of those things send the same message to the brain. This is a problem. This is a
Mm-hmm.
dangerous thing. You're right, brain. It's basically saying, yes, brain, you're totally right. This is the worst thing that could ever possibly happen. And the brain's like, cool, I knew I was right. Let me crank these symptoms up even further. Let me sensitize you to them even more. Oh, you weren't looking for them 24 hours a day before. Now you're going to look for them 24 hours a day.
Yep. Yep.
So
You guys, we did not discuss this before the
we did
call, but it
not.
is
We did
like you
not.
are singing our song, singing
That's
it.
why we have such an overlap. I said it would take us like maybe 15 minutes for people to be like, oh, obviously these two needed to talk because on this channel because it's the same. It's the same thing. So it may, again, people start off thinking it's a medical problem, but then it ends up I don't want to say a behavioral problem, but a problem that is definitely being ramped up by how people address it.
100%. Yeah. Because then it becomes, so here's the thing that triggered the initial reaction, but that the continuation of treating this thing as the thing that must be gone is what puts like a danger label on it and kind of tells your brain and your body to like, we better keep a careful eye on this. And
Yes,
like
exactly.
the way I view sensitization is like when you are, let's say you hear a noise in your house and like your spidey senses are up. Like now you're looking for more sounds. Like you don't want to you don't want there to be danger, but if there is, you want to find it. And if there's danger, you want to be fixated on it and for it so that you can do something to survive through it. Like I want to know
Yes,
where the murderer is in my house. And
that's
so
right.
if Dizzy is the murderer, that part of you, like my part versus your, right, the anxiety part, the survival mode is now looking for Dizzy because it's kind of following your lead. You're the one that's
Yes,
treating the sensation as the thing that must be gone. And your body's just kind of doing what you're telling it to do. None
yes.
of this is on purpose, but it's just like the problem is like our bodies are doing the right things. It's just hooked up to the wrong things.
It's just so hard. As you're saying this, I know you feel the same way. Because people are like, okay, Yonit, I know I need to stop scanning for sensations. I know I need to stop ruminating, but I can't stop doing those things. And
Mm-hmm.
now, and then they go off into further spirals. They're like spirals on top of spirals because then they're like, oh my gosh, this means I'm never going to recover because I'm not able. I heard someone say the other day, I know I need to fix the anxiety. And if I could just fix the anxiety, I'd get better. And because I can't, that means I'm never going to get better. And I'm like, this is a perfect example of what I was just talking about.
Yeah.
It's so tough. And I think the approach feels so paradoxical to people. The correct approach, the approach that actually works is basically the one that involves not trying to make it work. And
Mm-hmm.
this
Mm-hmm.
is it. I just want to say with complete empathy to those of you out there who are dealing with symptoms like these. I talk to people just like you every day. I know you're going through the absolute worst experience of your life. So I do not say this lightly at all. I know it's really hard. But I have seen other people just like you with symptoms at the severity of yours be able to successfully stop trying to fix their symptoms, even for
Mm.
moments at a time. And that, again, that doesn't necessarily feel good. It doesn't, but it also doesn't just mean surrendering and just being like, fine, I'm just going to be debilitated for life. What you talk about, Michelle, and what I talk about, probably using some different terms, but same idea, is training yourself to allow the symptoms to be there sometimes. And by doing that, you're sending your brain the opposite message, which is, oh,
Right.
this thing is okay. It's actually not something you need to react to in the way that you are.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you said that last part too, because that's often misinterpreted by messages from somebody like you or me, where it's interpreted as, oh, so like I'm never going to get rid of this. So you're just going to teach me coping skills. So this is just
No.
something I have to deal with and work through and talk about and manage. And that is
Ugh, I hate that
100%
word.
not what we're talking about.
Mm-mm. No. No, no, I am on a crusade, Michelle. This is one of my life ambitions, to get the medical community to stop using the word management for chronic vestibular disorders. I know I can be a bit weird about semantics, but this is one of those things. When I know management itself isn't a bad word, but when my desperate, terrified clients hear that word, what they hear is exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm stuck with this for life.
Mm-hmm.
No, that is not at all what Michelle and I are saying. We're
Right.
saying that we need to break this cycle. And this is a tool that helps break this cycle of
Mm-hmm.
sensitization and reinforcement that there is actually a dangerous thing happening. And when you do that, your brain has a chance to adapt. It has a chance to do what it does naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Neuroplasticity, all these programs out there trying to help your brain change in the right direction. None of that is necessary. Your brain knows what to do. It automatically knows how to say, oh, that's an error. I need to stop using that sense in the way that I was using it before. It knows how to do that automatically. We just need to get out of its way.
Oh my God,
And
thank you. Yes.
yes, yes,
Yes. If I
yes,
could
it's a
play a
very
song in
hopeful.
the background for this right now. It's so true because if people who signing up, it's such a catch-22 because
Yes,
what you're saying, yes, neuroplasticity, I'm going to make my new neural pathways. Yes, but that's this kind of stuff that happens indirectly
yes, correct.
as a response of how you are treating what's there. But anybody who's spending their thousands and thousands of dollars to sign up for these programs is going at it with effort, with let's see if this works, with, okay, I'm going to try really hard and make my brain habituate. And then we check to
Uh-huh.
see if it worked. And you're really just looking to see if dizzy is still there. Is it gone? And it
Yes.
becomes so frustrating and so disheartening. And then people get so down and they're like, oh my God, I just must be broken. I'm going
Right.
to be stuck like this forever because all these things aren't working. But it's because it's usually the intention that's off.
That's exactly right. I say it's not about the what, it's about the how. And
Me too.
you do? Oh,
Yeah.
see, I didn't even know that. Maybe I did steal it from you a long time ago and I don't remember, but I think I independently came up with that one. Oh my gosh, it's truly about that. And but again, that message I really want people to hear is, it's with the neuroplasticity stuff, there's no how and what and all that. Just let that happen. Just
Mm-hmm.
let it happen. That will
Mm-hmm.
happen on its own. Your brain knows how to compensate for stuff. Your brain is so magnificently capable of dealing with whatever symptoms you have. Your job is to get out of its way. And the way you get out of its way is by letting your brain know that it is not in the danger it thinks it's in.
Mm-hmm.
And you are
Mm-hmm.
not going to do that by trying to fix it.
Right. Right. This is, and so in our world, this enters kind of like what exposure therapy is. And it's not meant to be a direct approach and see if it worked and check the box. But if I do it enough time, I lose my fear, right? Yeah, but not if you're asking me like that. But not that way. Like again, by accident, almost as a byproduct. So in this world, it's almost like the exposure is I have to let dizzy be in my body, but be
Yes.
aware of my response to dizzy, how I'm
Yes.
treating dizzy, and treat dizzy with the same amount of respect I treat any other sensation that shows up in my body. Doesn't
Yes.
matter if I like it or not.
That's right.
It's not a matter of my opinion about it. It's a matter of I've developed like a disorder of resistance towards something because I don't like it. And if you can't fight it away, the fight is the disorder, not the thing you're fighting.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And this is so hard for people to grasp, especially when the symptoms are so
Mm-hmm.
debilitating. Again, I keep kind of harping on this, but I just feel like it's necessary of, because people sometimes are probably going to come to your channel and be like, okay, I'm not sure that Michelle stuff applies to me because like this is so physical. This is
Mm-hmm.
so incredibly physical. I can't see. I'm blind. I see a vortex when I look at the sky. I can't track moving objects. The floor feels like I'm walking on marshmallows. Like, I'm sorry,
Mm-hmm.
but that
Mm-hmm.
is not, I'm not just like anxious. And we're not saying you're just anxious, but it, if you're dealing with symptoms that are chronic, as you say, there is some disorder of resistance that's keeping the symptoms going.
Yeah. Yeah. Did I hold this up on our last when I was on your channel? Oh, by the way, check out Dr.
No.
Yo's channel because she invited me to hers, and we're
It's a
going
great
back and
interview.
forth.
We did. Yes. Yes.
I
Yeah.
didn't take this up.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so I don't know. I hope this
Yeah, I
reads
can
the
see
right
it.
way when this is
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
recorded. And so if
Oh,
we stay
yes,
here
it's
with what
backwards.
is it backwards? Okay.
No, it's not.
So
It's not. It's
maybe
not.
oh, it's not.
It's not. It's good.
If we stay here with what is happening I have a video out there. I call this the disorder template, which is kind of how a good chunk of disorders, especially in this particular world, work. If it stays here, and on the video I said, if you're just a boring 4-year-old news reporter that only reports the facts, right? Like, I am speaking to Dr. Yo. Yep. Period. She has a plant behind her. Yep. Period. It's sunny out right now. Yep. Period. You are just the observer of sensory input. Okay. You can do like one other thing here, which is have an opinion about it. Like, Dr. Yo has a plant behind her. I like that plant. It's a little cloudy here. I don't like that. I feel dizzy. I don't like dizzy. Correct. Period. Anything beyond the period is where the disorder probably is. So this is not the disorder. This is the experience. Okay.
Yes.
The disorder usually starts here with, so
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
with me.
Yep. Yep.
What is happening? What is your story about what's happening? Your story is probably a version of a danger or threat. It is probably predictive in nature, and it comes with some version of permanence, forever, or irreparable damage about the present experience. And
And
this
it
is,
means something about me personally, most likely
mm-hmm,
as well. Yes.
mm-hmm. So this is usually where we go sideways. So here's the thing that's present. I don't like it. And now I'm telling danger predictive stories about it, which then dictates my behavior. So now what are you doing about this based on your story? And so usually our interpretation of dizzy, like you were saying, somebody might be sensitized and go, oh, that's weird, or I'm dizzy, which is my husband. Okay. He is a
We
natural
all know one
born
of those.
beer. He had COVID, and when he gets COVID, he gets dizzy for a while afterwards. And when he had gotten COVID the time before the last time, he just looked at me one day on the couch. He's like, I think I'm just going to be dizzy forever. And then he just kind of carried on and kept going. I was like, do you want like a Gatorade? Do you want this? Do you want to maybe see the doctor? Because, I'm a doer and he's just a beer. And so he doesn't have stories. He doesn't do a lot of behaviors. He just sort of notices what his body does. And then his body regulates itself. Like, bodies are self-regulating systems. And when we get in the way of trying to regulate a self-regulating system, we kind of just develop a doing disorder.
Yes.
Right. And so these two things, this interview is about dizzy. I mean, we can do an interview about anything else, and this thing could change. So this topic is dizzy, but this stuff is pretty consistent. And no matter who I talk to, whatever it is they're fighting, do you see that as well? The stories and the behavior and how they fuel each other.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's exactly right. Now, of course, as I mentioned, I know the sensations themselves are really, and sometimes like outright terrifying to the level like you cannot not just plop down on the floor and just cry. Like they can be that intense. But it's very rare that I meet someone who then doesn't have a panicky story or multiple stories then associated with that, and then multiple doing strategies that they start to engage in on the
Right.
heels of that, during and on the heels of that, trying to think their way out of it, even in the moment, Googling it, researching it, calling doctors, talking to friends, giving it lots of airtime, trying to think it through, ruminating about it, projecting. And then also there's this internalization that I notice happening too, where people start to create a new story about themselves based on the experience that they had, which ties back into what I was saying earlier about the life stressors thing that can cause sensitization of the system. That's why when I'm working with people, I often do need to go into stuff that's happened to them before, not for the purpose of fixing things, but because that's affecting what the symptoms mean to them.
Right.
And
Right.
this entire suffering experience that they're having right now is being seen through the lens of some of these stressors and the identity that they formed around themselves from those previous stressors. I can be much more clear and give a quick example if that's
Please,
helpful.
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say that prior to ever developing dizziness, this is just kind of a classic example. Someone was just kind of over responsible. They grew up in a home where, mom and dad were really busy. They were the older sibling and they were just kind of over responsible. And so they just kind of developed this core sense. I'm responsible for everything.
Yeah.
It's just who I am. It's just who I am. Well, then they have vertigo. And because they see that particular experience through the lens of I'm responsible for everything, they go straight into responsibility.
Yeah.
I'm going to take responsibility for this. It's probably my fault, actually, that it happened. I wasn't taking care of myself. Okay, if it wasn't my fault and I'm out of control here and I can't take responsibility, that means I'm actually a terrible person. I'm worthless because I'm not doing the thing I'm supposed to be doing. It creates, the stories get generated by some of these prior experiences, but the stories ultimately are actually the problem. The prior experiences are maybe a source of additional stress and ideas, but they're primarily leading to the stories and the actions that people are taking that are causing all this resistance to the symptoms.
Right. 100%. And that's, to me, I see that the best reason to go back there. It helps with context. It helps to say, oh, that's right. I kind of grew up thinking, oh, it was my responsibility to make sure these people are happy or bad things happen. And if somebody was mad, it was my fault. And now, something's wrong here. This must be my fault. I should fix this. Right. And so sometimes we develop a pattern of how we perceive life through a lens, through a trauma lens, through that history and so going back to see that can be helpful to say, oh, that's right. Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense why now I'm so fixed on being a fixer and doer. Or I see it work backwards is when we're only doing trauma work to get rid of dizzy.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my
Or
gosh.
this is the reason, oh, you must have a trauma that's happened and now dizzy, if we can, as if dizzy is like the fever. And if we can just get to the source, this comes up with anxiety disorders too.
Oh, Michelle, it's so heartbreaking to see. I know exactly what you're talking about. First of all, there becomes this obsession with like, okay, I have to just release the trauma. I have to find the correct trauma. And then when I release it, boom, it will fix everything.
Yes.
No. I'm not saying that there's no truth in the idea that emotional charge being let out is helpful, because obviously it is. It helps regulate you. So if you're full of anger and resentment and it's like up to here and you like let some of that out, your system goes, she's not in danger anymore. And that sensitization comes down. So there is some truth in the idea that having emotional expression practices is good, but it's never one single thing. It's never one single trauma. It's never one single event. It's what the entirety of your experiences have led you to believe about yourself and how you need to handle this thing, this dizzy thing, or this visual thing, or this swaying, rocking, bobbing thing, or this migraine thing. And it can get really, really tricky, because sometimes I like to work backwards, Michelle. I like to say, okay, someone's resisting. I'm using your word. Someone's resisting the symptoms. They're not able to like just track them and allow them to be here. Okay, let's find out why they're not able to do that. And that's what ends up leading us back to those beliefs or those feelings. And that to me is the correct approach, because then we're not looking for a specific one. We're saying, we're going to track it back to this. And then once we look at that, we might say, actually things aren't like that anymore. Or, maybe I do need to let this feeling happen. And then I'm going to feel better. And then maybe I can now come back to the symptom and I'm just going to be able to let it happen.
Right. Because to say like the why, like I like to say, pin the whys to your behaviors rather than the feeling, because we're really good at going, oh God, why am I dizzy? I shouldn't have gotten up. It's because I got up from the chair too quick. Or, well, maybe it's this disorder that they haven't found. Well, maybe it's this, or maybe it's that. I ate a banana. And we go looking for associations.
Yeah.
Or, yesterday I ate a banana at 10 o'clock and I was fine. But today I ate a banana at 10:30. And we tend to be kind of like hardwired to be good at making those associations too.
Yes.
And
Yep.
that usually helps many people in their jobs and careers, really good, whatever, engineers or IT or problem solvers or future predictors. Works great for that kind of stuff. Works completely backwards for this because, again, now dizzy is the problem to solve. And really, dizzy is the experience we have. And when it's treated as a problem to solve, that's what turns it into like the disorder is our relationship with dizzy, not the
Mm-hmm.
dizzy.
Yes. Yes. And I want to emphasize for those of you listening who are not yet familiar with Michelle's work, this is consistent with neuroscience as well. This isn't just, oh, okay, well, we're going to address it like an anxiety disorder and then like maybe it'll go away. This is actually how sensory processing works. Predictive coding is how our brain uh, uses information from our senses to figure out what's happening. So predictive coding just simply means your brain has certain expectations about what might happen. And
Mm-hmm.
then when things actually do happen, it compares those expectations to what it's getting from the outside. And that comparison is actually what you're experiencing.
Right.
So you're not just sitting around passively and then your brain's like, okay, I'm going to take in all the visual information that I have around me and I'm going to figure out what it means. And then that's how Yonit's going to know she's looking at a computer. My brain is already predicting I'm looking at a computer screen right now. It's predicting I'm talking to you. And then it's just making minor adjustments to my experience based on new sensory information that comes in. So given that that's how the brain works, the behaviors that people engage in, the avoidance or the rumination or all those things, that manipulates, that changes the predictive systems in the brain. It actually tells your brain, oh, these are actually problems. Don't stop ignoring information
Right.
that's not
Right.
important. It's actually reinforcing on a brain level the
Mm-hmm.
symptoms. So when you stop doing that, your brain starts to actually notice that there are errors happening. That's what dizziness means, by the way. When someone has physical symptoms, it means there's an error. Your brain is saying, I predict this. And your eyes are like, no, that is absolutely not what's happening. And your brain's like, no, I still predict this. That's dizzy. That's what dizzy is. So what we're doing when we're reinforcing that cycle is saying, brain's right, even though eyes are saying something different. And when we stop doing that, your brain's like, oh, wait, my bad. You're right,
Mm-hmm.
eyes. That makes more sense. That actually totally makes more sense than the prediction that I had. My bad. Let me update my predictions.
Right. Right. And it's what I reinforce on the other end too, right? So I'll see dizzy come up in, I mean, off the top of my head, three areas right now. A prediction of passing out, right? This present sensation means
Yes.
I'm gonna, oh
Yep.
my God, I was just about to pass out and I stopped it. I did something to make the bad thing not happen. And so now we think I prevented the future by fighting the present. And really, you're kind of just creating an anxiety disorder with this. And
Yes.
again, we think it's all control kind of stuff too. It's very similar to if I can get rid of my intrusive thoughts, I won't go crazy. If I can get rid of nausea, I won't throw up. It's that
Yep.
same kind of OCD-ish type template that this whole
Absolutely.
program follows, where the sensation becomes the obsession. And now we're trying to make bad things not happen by, as long as I don't have this feeling, my predicted future is safe. But as
That's
soon
right.
as I feel uncomfortable, I predict danger.
That's exactly right. And I see this happen so much. Another thing I think is important for people to hear, they may find themselves on your channel and be like, I have never had a problem with anxiety in my entire life. And now I'm having these insane intrusive thoughts. What is happening? Obviously, my brain is just broken. Like this dizziness thing has broken my brain. And this is actually extremely common because of one of the things I said earlier, that when someone's disoriented, that fight or flight response or that danger alert response
Mm-hmm.
ramps up naturally, and it can induce essentially obsessive compulsive patterns in people who've never had anxiety before. So they get thrown into it. I feel so bad for them, Michelle, because look, I wish no one experienced anxiety, but people who end up with neural circuit dizziness or these dizziness syndromes I'm discussing, who previously had anxiety, at least sometimes are aware that their brains can be kind of unreliable at times. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
people who've never had an anxiety problem at all,
Yeah.
they find themselves like truly wondering if they're having a complete psychotic
Mm-hmm.
break.
Yeah, because there's no
And
context. You don't
there's
know
no
what's
context.
happening. It's
Yes.
confusing. Yeah.
But I'm here to tell people that's it's a side effect of dizziness. It's just a side effect. But yes, it can induce OCD type thoughts. And so that's why the things that you talk about on your channel are so important for recovery from dizziness, even
Mm-hmm.
if you've never had anxiety before.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a history of trauma. It does not have to be. It could be.
Mm-mm.
Doesn't
Mm-mm.
have to
Yeah.
be. It doesn't have to be a history of an anxiety disorders or a history of abuse or a history of whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Sometimes it's just for me. I had a panic attack, and so this is different, different but the same. I had to have panic attack in the movie theater, and old Michelle, whoosh, clear line, new and very much not improved Michelle. So now panic became like the obsession. And so instead of checking and looking for dizzy, I was checking and looking for nausea. And it just sort of, it can just kick itself off. And, but nobody tells us it's the continued involvement and all of that that keeps it going. Like the
Mm-hmm.
biggest one in this world that I'll see is, um, I smoke pot or did drugs or
Mm.
drank too much and got hungover. Usually it's I smoke pot. I had a bad high. I had a panic attack when I was high, and I was like, let's just sleep it off. And the next day I still had that weird feeling. And then I was like, okay, it'll be gone. And then it's not gone. And then we think, oh my God, am I still high? Or did this
Mm.
permanently damage my brain? And now DPDR, which kind of would have just passed for the other people you got high with, right?
Yes.
Now that
Yes.
becomes basically the obsession. And all the things we're doing to feel more connected and be the old me and is it gone are really versions of compulsive behaviors.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So glad you mentioned that. I have to say, Michelle, on a personal note, I am obviously not a mental health professional. I had no choice but to learn. I mean, basically, my clients gave me a crash course in OCD because
Mm-hmm.
I had no choice but to understand how it works because I see it happen so much. It's just like you said, and I want people to realize this, that even without a history, without any kind of anxiety history, or maybe without, many people with these dizziness disorders end up doing exactly what you said. They
Mm-hmm.
get into a an obsessing, fixing, doing cycle. And often it's so quick that they don't even realize they're doing it. It
Right.
feels automatic,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be really difficult to start to untangle it. And in fact, Michelle, I think one of the biggest pitfalls for people is, oh, they're like, okay, dare response, cool, okay, Yonit said dare response is really great, and they start doing that compulsively.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. Yes. Even dare can be used like recovery can become the obsession. Oh, okay.
Yes.
So just don't think about it. Now I'm trying really hard to not think about it. And it's still gone out with that same kind of disordered mindset where everything is done with the must or else mindset to check to see if it worked.
Yeah,
And that's not how habituation works. That's not how regulation works.
that's
The
exactly
problem
right.
is there's a good majority of my field that does sell that. That sells, I need to do a lot of things to regulate my self-regulating body. I need to do a lot of things. I need to do this workbook. I need to sign up for all this stuff. I need to do a lot of work to to achieve the goal. And again, I've never seen that work. It happens as a byproduct. Even exposure therapies, if you're going at like, I'm doing the exposures every day. Okay, why? What, what are you doing? How are you doing it? Why are you doing it? Are you doing it because, oh, because that grocery store is safe and because dizzy is safe and I can be dizzy in the grocery store and you're doing it with an effort sort of mindset with like a, yeah, that's how habituation works. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
going at it with a pen to track your progress and to check your body to see if you survived and you didn't pass out and if I responded properly, that's still with
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's hard. That's a hard thing for me to put into words.
Oh, okay. So I have two things I wanted to say to that. So first of all, this lands on one of the, I think, major flaws in how these vestibular disorders are often treated. So people are often sent to vestibular rehabilitation therapy,
Mm-hmm.
and exposure and habituation and adaptation and substitution. These are the things that vestibular therapy is trying to provoke. That is actually super important. Yes. But I was taught, I'm trained in vestibular therapy. I was taught to keep a log of the
Mm-hmm.
patient's symptoms, like on a rating scale of 1 to 5, and then to send them home with exercises and have them rate their symptoms 1 to 5.
Sounds
And
very
so,
familiar.
yes. And so this is, I mean, and there are actually a lot of vestibular therapists who've written to me and who've used the material on my channel and who are in agreement with me that that particular approach, while it may work for other acute problems, is probably not the right one for chronic vestibular symptoms, because it's doing exactly what you just said. It
Mm-hmm.
causes people to actually focus on monitoring and focusing on the symptoms
Right,
rather than
right.
other things. So I think that's one reason I say this on my channel a lot. I'm a little hesitant to tell people, oh no, don't go to vestibular rehab, because it can be tremendously helpful, but you really, really, really need to focus on how you're doing it. How
Right,
are you
right.
doing it?
Mm-hmm.
You want to approach it as a way of working on your own resistance rather than fixing symptoms. So
Right, right. It's so
big time.
tricky. That comes up in so many areas too. And like I see two camps of people usually. Like well, just to rewind for a second, like there's alleviation and there's like distress tolerance. And so alleviating something no different, let's say in the anxiety world, take a benzodiazepine, sure, that will alleviate anxiety. It will chemically if it works well in your body, right? Alleviation of anxiety is really not the approach for an anxiety disorder. So alleviation of anxiety for somebody with the mindset of it would be nice. Like, oh gosh, this is bothering me and it would be nice. Just like it would be nice to sleep better. I'm not a great sleeper. Do you have any suggestions? And so somebody might go to a sleep program. Like me, I don't sleep well, but I don't have like a disordered relationship with sleep. It would just be nice to sleep better. Now, I might talk about my past. I might talk about sleep positions. I might learn about your circadian rhythm. And then I might go at it with this lighter touch of like, oh, yeah, look at that. That weighted blanket did work. Huh, cool. That is
Mhm.
never my camp. The people who call me are camp two with like now sleep becomes a must or else. Sleep becomes the obsession. And now alleviation becomes the goal. And that doesn't work with the disorder. It has to be like, I have to get, like, I'll work with the person who has a sleep disorder. I have to get you better at not sleeping.
Yes, yeah, yeah. That's exactly right. I need to get you better at being dizzy. That's exactly right.
Yes.
Yep, yep. I need to get you better at being dizzy and having visual symptoms. I need to get you to the point where you're like the best at it.
I need
Because
to get
once
you
you're the
better at disconnected. Be as disconnected as possible, but be disconnected, not
Yep,
struggle with disconnected.
exactly. That's exactly right. So, and that actually brings me to that second point. So, everything I've said so far, I think for some people it's going to be counterintuitive, or they're going to be like, "What? What?" So, great. Fabulous. They have so many resources on your channel to look at and your amazing Instagram. You just have a way of just boiling it down to such a useful takeaway every time. I love your Instagram so much.
Thank
And I
you.
don't ever spend time on Instagram, but when I go on Instagram, I go straight to your page. Just
Thank you.
shout out to your page. It's awesome. Um, that being said, I work with a lot of people who are dealing with extremely intense symptoms, had enormous stress loads before they
Mm-hmm.
started. And so they're
Mm-hmm.
really sensitized. So they're starting to relate differently to symptoms. And man, that stress load is just still so high. They don't necessarily see results right away.
Right.
And they find it incredibly difficult to implement any of the things that we're talking about today. Like they kind of intuitively, but at some point they acknowledge and accept, like I'm thinking of one person in particular who's like, I know what I need to do. I could write a freaking book on this. In fact,
Oh yeah,
I
that's
have
on our
written a book on this
calls
just for
too.
fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I try to do it and my body's like, no, it will not do it. So that's when I think learning some of the things that learning all the things that you talk about, but then also learning how to relate to your own resistance to the resistance. So there's like kind of a second order resistance. I'm going to make this very simple because people are already like, wait, what? Their eyes are starting to. I like to think about this in terms of parts because I think it's just super easy and
Mm-hmm.
intuitive to understand. Okay, so Michelle and Yonit are saying that what I need to do is just be good at being dizzy. Got it. Okay, so I'm going to go into my next activity here. I'm going to see what it's like to be good at being dizzy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm not being very good at being dizzy. I'm resisting it. I'm trying to think about it. I'm trying to fix it. Okay. So then you notice those points of resistance to the dizziness and you start to relate to them. You start to
Mm-hmm.
say, there's the overthinker. There's the ruminator. There's the one that wants me to Google. And you start getting curious about and not resisting those things,
Right. You
allowing
accept
those
that too.
things. You accept that too.
Yeah.
And when you accept those things too, first of all, I think it really yields its own special kind of regulation and safety
Mm-hmm.
because you're attuning to yourself. You're being a good parental figure, a good attachment figure for yourself. You're you're allowing your own experiences. You're showing your brain, oh, I'm not afraid of that either. I'm not afraid of the overthinking. I'm not buying into it. Can I tell a little story I like to
Mm-hmm.
tell about my daughter? So my younger daughter, she sometimes, when she was a little bit younger, actually still probably nowadays, she's 8, she would say, I'm just really scared there's a monster in my closet. I'm really scared. And I wouldn't respond by saying, there's no monster in your closet. Everything's fine. I mean, that maybe that sort of reassurance works for some kids, but not for mine. Okay. And it probably wouldn't have made her feel better. I also don't say, oh my gosh, you're right. There's a monster in your closet. You're 100% right. So I'm not just
Mm-hmm.
validating what she's
Mm-hmm.
saying. Those are stories. Those are stories she's telling about a feeling that she's having. So right? So when I show up, I'm saying, oh, you're feeling afraid. I'm just there to let her know I hear what she's saying and
Mm-hmm.
I see what she's experiencing. And that in and of itself, without me doing anything further, is helping regulate her. It's helping her feel safe. I am being seen, I'm being heard, I'm being known, I'm being met. I'm not in this by myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And only after that might we have a conversation about monsters in the closet. But first, I'm letting her know
Right.
that her fears, it's okay to be afraid and she can tolerate being afraid. That's
100%.
that's step number one. So coming back to this idea that, we're working with the resistors, the ones
Mm-hmm.
that are
Mm-hmm.
resisting, you're doing the same thing for them. You're letting them know, yes, oh, you are overthinking. Well, bless you. Yes, it is kind of scary. We're gonna allow that. We're gonna allow that overthinking to be here, but we're also gonna acknowledge that we can handle that level of fear. We
Mm-hmm.
can handle
Mm-hmm.
it. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm here with you. And yep, it sucks and we don't like it, but we're gonna handle this by letting it happen. When you
Right.
when you're sending yourself that message over and over again, with some clarity on what's actually going on inside yourself, rather than just like this big blob of like I don't
Mm-hmm.
even know what's happening. I'm just resisting and I can't stand the dizziness. It's very regulating and promotes a lot of safety. And then it makes it a lot easier later once you've built this relationship with yourself to
Mm-hmm.
then go in with this less resistance, being good at being dizzy or being good at handling symptoms. And in fact, really at that point, I often say the symptoms are, someone's going to get mad for me saying this, but the symptoms are sort of the easy part. Because once you get to the point where you're just really good at having them, they just go away on their own. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to
Mm-hmm.
like do something special for them. You don't have to do special
Right.
exercises to make them go away.
Yeah. And that's kind of like for this thing, this was never the thing to be gone. This is. So,
Hmm.
with the mindset of I need to do something to get rid of this is probably what kicks off the disorder.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so
Absolutely.
teaching your kids how to be scared and how to have thoughts and what scared is for and what intrusive thoughts are, I think it's so important to, because if you're born into these body suits, that's, I call them, you're born into a body suit and you live inside of it. Nobody's given us a manual. So, but if we kind of know like, oh, there's a digestive system, it does this stuff. Oh, this is diarrhea. Oh, that's deja vu, right? So when stuff starts to happen, um, you're not so confused and you're not so surprised. You still might not like all that stuff, but it's like, oh, that's an intrusive thought. That's not a sign of a disorder. Intrusive thought is a sign of a brain that can spontaneously create thoughts that you don't like, that comes paired with uncomfortable feelings.
Yes.
When you boil it all down, that's what intrusive thoughts are. And they're talked about a lot in the world of OCD because intrusive thoughts become the obsession. And when you're
That's right.
very sensitized, it's almost like your insulation gets thinner and they feel more here. You think, oh my God, I never had thoughts like this before. Yes, you did. Absolutely, you did. You want to know? Ask any 4-year-old about intrusive thoughts. Start talking about like, oh my God, imagine. And if you start a sentence like that, oh my God, could you imagine? Could you imagine if I just dropped this pencil out the window? What do you think would happen? Imagine I just slipped and fell off this chair. And then they will tell you the most vile, gory, graphic things because nobody's told them not to imagine yet. Right?
Yeah.
They're at peace with their imagination. And for the most part, as when we're younger, like you kind of learn how to develop a disordered relationship with your body, right? And so it's good to teach kids at an early age like what bodies do so that you're not surprised when these things show up, and we're maybe less likely to develop some doing disorders about a lot of it where oh yeah, a lot of stuff your body does is not in your control and you just sort of like, oh yeah, my body is doing that thing right now. And you just
Yeah.
let it.
Yep. You let it. And I think one thing that this can get really tricky because people can end up developing this disordered relationship with this stuff. But I think about my daughter, and in that situation, often these intrusive thoughts are a sign that there is something bothering her. It's not the monster in the closet, it's something else. But we can't start by trying to find it and fix it. So
Right.
when we've gone through monsters in the closet, after we've digested and metabolized
Mm-hmm.
the fear, we've talked things through a little bit. At that point, I might say something like, you know, if I had just started school, I might feel maybe a little bit worried or maybe a little bit overwhelmed by some things that happened in class. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
And then it turns out this fear response to this intrusive thought was prompted by something completely unrelated to monsters in closets. It was fear related to something totally different, and we can then address it.
Right.
But
Right.
so, and I think so. I just want to say, at least for my folks with dizziness, I do think that that's important. Knowing this is something I know that it's discussed in inference-based CBT, which is something I'm trained in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The idea that the fear story you create actually does have something to do with your identity. Like it actually does have something to do with some of your experiences and beliefs about
Mm-hmm.
yourself and your values. But we don't go there first. We don't
Right.
want to necessarily go there first.
Right.
We want to say these things are, well, we might want to go there first for some people who are having this resistance problem, but we're not doing that in an obsessive, like, let me go on a digging expedition kind of way so that I can figure out what those things are. And then I'm going to like play battleship with each one of these resistant points. And then I'm going to play battleship with
Mm-hmm.
symptoms. It
Mm-hmm.
can't be like that.
Right. Because these like anxiety disorders, OCD, it hooks to the loud stuff. And sometimes it's a nice distraction too from the other stuff that's a little harder to get to, like
Mm-hmm.
grief or loss or
Exactly.
first day of school where it's like, oh yeah, that was so bad. Oh yeah, well, there's a monster in my closet. And because that has like now danger hooked to it, it's almost like your brain's way of like distracting you from the stuff that's harder on a different sort of level to
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
well, we can't worry about this right now. We have to try not die. And so now it's like a accidental version of distraction, of self-distraction, of like let's check for monsters in my closet because now maybe I can control this. Because very often, if you do look back, there are other things in your life, either right now or before, that have happened that were not in your control. And
Mm-hmm.
that scares the shit out of everybody. Health anxiety will spin off from dizzy too, of like, oh,
Big time.
my family member died in a way. Maybe they
I see
had
that so much.
an aneurysm or they died, let's just say. And now they become hyper fixated on themselves because now they're trying not to die too. And
Yes.
what's so hard about these disorders, I think the most tricky part is that they're all well intended. They are fueled by people that are trying so hard to get better, that are trying so hard to be okay, that are trying so hard to make bad things happen, to not die. And the disorder is that behavior is not actually keeping you more safe. It's just maintaining this disorder. So when
That's right.
people like us come on and we're like, it's those behaviors, it's that involvement. It's like, what do you mean that's irresponsible to not monitor my dizzy? Because what if the doctors didn't catch something and then it's too late? It's too far gone. And so that's the irreparable damage story. And again, because they're all well intended, it's very hard to stop the doing because it feels very risky to stop.
That's right. That's exactly right. I'm just thinking about different people I've worked with and the kinds of stories they tell themselves. So it can be this protecting yourself from death story. It can be protecting yourself from feeling overwhelming shame and guilt, like we talked about previously with someone who feels I'm supposed to be over responsible for
Mm-hmm,
everything.
mm-hmm.
It can be protecting your sense of self-worth in other ways. Uh, if I'm dizzy, then I can't da 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 da, da, and if I can't da da da, that means this terrible thing about me. And so again, it becomes the desire to fix the symptoms becomes so much more intense
Much
because
more
it's
than dizzy too.
fueled
Yeah.
by those things. And of course, the symptoms themselves increase as well. But it's because the
Right.
resistance has increased as well.
Mm-hmm. 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 And another line like, how much longer can I tolerate this for? I can't tolerate this. What do you mean this is for the rest of my life? It's a version of prediction. It's a
Yes.
version of this is going to last forever. And I have proof that it's going to last forever because it's already lasted this long.
And
Or,
they go
yeah,
online and they
I was
see
going to say,
things.
and then Reddit will
Oh
tell you
God.
that, right? I've
Oh my
struggled with this
gosh.
for 25 years,
Yes.
you
Oh,
know,
Michelle, it's so awful. And I want people to hear this flat out. There's those social media sites where you see the angry people saying you can never get better. Not only is there a selection bias, meaning people who get better don't stay on there. So you're only there with the people who don't get better and who are
mm-hmm,
stuck in this
mm-hmm.
this this state. But also they people get caught in this identity of having a particular disorder, and then they will deliberately edit out anything that contradicts that viewpoint. I was told by a client recently who authorized me to share this that in the visual snow syndrome subreddit, there was someone who posted a success story, and within 10 minutes, the person was banned and the success story was taken down
What? Why?
because it's misleading to say people can recover or something, because this is the culture in some of these groups. I'm not, and those of you out there with any of these syndromes that I've named who've seen I'm not saying this with any amount of uh judgment, like personal judgment
Mm-hmm.
against people, but you need to be responsible. If you are dealing with these syndromes and you are here on this channel trying to get better, you need to get yourself the heck out of those groups and not look at them, because they are feeding you incorrect, extremely biased information that is curated to make you believe you will not get better. So you need
Yeah.
to recognize that and get out.
Yeah. And it seems again that it seems well intended of like, yeah, but it's a community of support. Yeah, anybody ever. And when all the posts of anybody ever or commiseration,
Mhm.
we can sell that to a point of like, yeah, but what do I just never talk about it? Or it's nice to vent, or it's just
Yes.
so hard sometimes it's
Yeah.
nice to
It's
talk.
so hard.
True, but how much time, like, where are you sending the majority of your time and energy?
That
Like,
too.
if you kind of zoom out a little bit, if you have 24 hours a day, what are you plugged into? Are you plugged into living, not for sake of distraction, but like the same way, like I'll tell people if it's one particular sensation, like dizzy, and they're trying really hard to accept and allow dizzy, they're still hyper fixated on dizzy, trying hard, and that's not how acceptance works. So I'll say, find another thing in your body that you don't like, but you really don't care about. I'm like, you've been on all those forums. So let's say, you don't care about nausea or
Right.
heart palpitations or intrusive thoughts. Cause we'll do dare swap meet sometimes on a group call. I'm like, who's got intrusive thoughts? Okay. And who desperately wants to get rid of them? Okay. Who doesn't give a shit? They're just trying not to die. And the other half raises their hand.
Right. Right.
Then I'm like, okay, sell your story. And you can see how the stories are like, yeah, but this is the worst thing because. And the other person is like,
Yeah.
oh my God, give it to me. I'll take it because
I'd
I could
rather have
really
that than what
die,
I
or I'd
have.
rather
Yep.
have that. And
Mhm.
so I'll tell somebody who's kind of stuck exerting effort to try hard to accept and allow, find another thing you don't like that you sort of have like that automatic dare response of like, oh yeah, I'm just nauseous. So what do you do for nausea? And you can tell when they don't care because they do what everybody else does that doesn't do anything. They look off to the side, they go like this, and they just make shit up. They're like, "Uh, oh, maybe I'll lay down. Maybe I'll have
Right. Right.
tea, or
Right. Yeah.
maybe I'll throw up, or you see, it's like they're describing what non-doing looks like. And then when you hear that, the receiver, so let's say me, I have a disordered relationship with nausea and throwing up. I take those words as actionable things to do. Oh, you drink tea? Which tea? Ginger tea or peppermint tea? Okay, and then I'm using them as actionable points when really all that person is describing is what non-doing looks like.
Exactly.
Right? So find
Yep.
something else you don't like that you just naturally don't do anything about and try and tap into that non-tangible, I don't know, attitude, whatever you want to call it, like how you treat that when it shows up. It probably comes with like, yeah, I see it, I don't like it, but, and it comes with like an automatic shrug. And that's what we're trying to teach. The acceptance
That's
just
exactly
means
right.
that's what's present. Yup, period. And that's it. End of involvement.
That's it. And this is hard. It's hard. And what you're just, it's so simple. It is so simple that people are like, there's
Simple
just
but
no
not
way.
easy.
There's
Yeah.
just no way. But it isn't easy. But this is where, again, it's such a gift when you can learn this skill of just allowing what's there.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if you're like, all right, I can't do what Michelle just said, I'm actually resisting hardcore and I hate this thing and I'm going to do it. I'm going to do something about it. If you have enough skill to step back and say, oh, there's the doer, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
allow
Mm-hmm.
the doer
Mm-hmm.
and not
Mm-hmm.
do, just allow the doer, then you're already doing the thing. You're actually doing, non doing. You're already non doing the thing. You're non doing the thing. So I encourage people to, when they're using the exercises that you provide and that's in the Dare app, or if they're listening to Claire Week's fabulous books or whatever it is, eh, that they start to realize that this same practice applies to everything. It applies to both your reactions to the symptoms, but also your reactions
Mm-hmm.
to your reactions to the symptoms
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
other
Mm-hmm.
stressors in your life. And when we're not saying this is not a passive process. I guess that's another thing I want to say, especially about stressors. People are like, oh, so I'm just supposed to like allow that or just like accept that A, B, and C happened to me. And I say, well, I think the step one to resolving anything is acknowledging the truth of what actually happened. Like,
Mm-hmm.
let's start
Mm-hmm.
by just telling the truth. Like,
Mm-hmm.
let's
Mm-hmm.
start there. Does that mean that we have to like it or we're just going to roll over and not do anything else forever and ever? No, it just means that we're telling the truth first. That
Right.
is an active process, not a passive
Mm-hmm.
process. And then when we are deliberately creating a relationship with something, deliberately creating this accepting relationship with something, that's not passive either. That's tending to yourself. That's developing a relationship to yourself. That is one that is, uh, to use a sort of I don't know a popular word, but compassionate. It's a compassionate
Mm-hmm.
relationship with yourself. And when you're doing this with curiosity, with interest, with
Right.
it doesn't have to just look like meh, don't care, neutral.
Mm-hmm.
It can look like, isn't that interesting? Cool.
Right.
All of those things are doing more than just addressing resistance. They're bringing in a new way of being with everything, with both symptoms and non-symptoms and everything that's happened to you. And I trust that when you build that trust with yourself, that you're going to find new ways of relating to things that have happened, that's going to cause you to relate to all those things differently as you move forward in life.
Right. And that's cognitive flexibility. And in this world, a lot, it's very, there's very rigid mindsets. It's black or white. There are sharp edges. It's, okay, I'm fighting dizzy. Oh, Dr. Yo said don't fight it. Now I'm trying really hard to not
Not to
fight
fight
dizzy.
it. Yes,
But see, it's the same
exactly.
amount of effort. Or
Yeah.
like I'm internally hyperfixated. I'm spending all my time here. I have to spend all my time here. And then we're like, oh, go engage in life. Oh, I have to spend all my time out
That's
here.
right. Yes.
And it's like the middle is soft and the middle is like, it's like
Hard.
I can spend my time in both of these places. And when you become aware of the behavior, like here's the thing I'm fixated on, and I'll say it's tricky because you're so aware of what you're looking at, but usually it's harder to be aware of, oh, there I am hyperfixated again on this. And then you want to look at the behavior. Oh, there I go comparing again. Oh, there I go predicting again, instead of, oh my God, I'm about to pass out. There I go predicting again. And now here, like one of my videos, I was like, the pre-step to change is to do all of your behavior willingly. So rather than trying hard not to predict, okay, well, I can predict something else. Well, what's a worse prediction? Well, what's a better prediction? This is not to do my CBT workbook and make a change in how I feel. It's really just learning how to, again, be cognitively flexible. A lot of times in this world, we find the very worst thing that could. We put on blinders and we plug into it, and we're trying really hard to make that bad thing not happen, or to make that thing I don't like go away. And all these other things actually exist too, but we're just not locked onto them. So even just knowing like, oh my God, I could pass out. Okay. Also, you could not. Also, you could just be dizzy right now. Also, you could just be hung in and so it's not to negate that could.
That's exactly right.
It's just to let all the other possibilities come in rather than
That's right.
hyperfixate on the one we don't like.
Oh my gosh, you're hitting something I've been thinking about a lot lately, Michelle. So this idea, first of all, I've been saying for a long time, maybe in a way that people don't particularly care for, because they come in with dizzy and they're like, oh, I want dizzy to go away. And I'm like, well, you're actually gonna probably change and experience a lot of growth. And people are like, I don't want to grow. I was good the way it was before. I just want you to get rid of dizzy.
Yeah.
So, and then that for some people, just reacting differently to symptoms is all that needs to happen, and they just get better. But for a lot of people, there is a growth process that happens. And I think of it as a growth process toward flexibility and resilience.
Mm-hmm.
Flexibility equals resilience. That's, you have to be able to be flexible in order to become resilient. And I think that's the effect it ends up having on people when they incorporate these practices. And again,
Mm-hmm.
they may look very different for different people, but when they internalize these practices that are both meeting themselves in a deeper, more authentic way, and also relating to their experiences in a more flexible way, they end up
Right.
more resilient. But I've been thinking also about how that uh, makes also just a ton of sense from a neuroscience perspective, and why this would explain why this is so important for symptoms. It comes back to this predictive processing question. So earlier we talked about how your brain has expectations and it matches the sensory information to those expectations, and that's how it knows what's actually happening. When you're rigid, your predictions are very rigid, and they have no choice but to keep predicting the same things over and over again, and
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
creates a lack of resilience in the face of adversity. So when you're practicing becoming flexible in all these other areas, you're opening up your your general flexibility, the flexibility that's going to allow your brain to adapt to sensations
Mm-hmm.
and other sources of stress in your life.
Right. And if you're only predicting two options, either I'm going to beat this and I'll recover and I'll go back to the old me and then I'll be fine, or I'm going to fail and never make my new neural pathways and I'll be stuck like this forever and I'll enter a state of
Yeah,
depression. And then so when you only have two predictions, this is where perfectionism mindset comes in.
absolutely.
Either I do it right and I do it right all the time and I accept all the time. And perfectionism is probably more of the disorder than dizzy or anxiety, right? Trying to
I've
go
heard you
at
say
it
that.
just right is
Yep.
like the opposite of being human.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
So is there like a really important takeaway that either we didn't bring up or that you want to reinforce? Like, what do you want people to leave here with, if they could leave here with just like some main ideas?
Okay. Um, First of all, most importantly, you can absolutely recover from chronic dizziness symptoms. You can recover from PPPD. You can recover from vestibular migraine, MDDS, and any of the other symptom-based diagnoses that you may have received that describe vestibular or chronic visual vestibular issues. Period. You can recover from those, and the way to recover from those is ultimately sort of where we ended our conversation, to increase your flexibility. And increasing your flexibility is something that you can do by recognizing I don't need to actually fix my neural circuits. They can take care of themselves.
Mm.
And my relationship with what's happening is affected by both how I'm thinking about it and feeling about it right now, and the ways that I've been taught to think about and feel about things based on my past experiences. And those are all malleable. They're all changeable. They're all flexible. They're all things that you are completely capable of changing. And it starts with just, first of all, accepting and, and being good at accepting what's here right now. That's really where it starts.
Perfectly said. We need like we need like a corner of all of us to start.
I know.
Sometimes you feel like you're screaming into the noise of like
Yes.
all the other posts out there. I was saying
Yes.
to somebody, I'm like, I will never have 1 million followers. I will never be a millionaire because the business model and recovery model are opposite from each other.
That's 100% correct. I was just thinking about this
Oh yeah,
also. Yes. And
how poor we're
I'm,
gonna be.
how poor we're going to be. Well, because this comes up periodically and I'm like, no, I'm just going to be okay in my, like, doing things the way I think they need to be done. Uh, for me, Michelle, one of my big, not obstacles, but my big new initiatives is just getting this into the hands of medical professionals, because they really
Hmm.
do think of PPPD and MDDS and vestibular migraine as something different from what we're talking about. And so I'm really, really working on that, and I'm making headway there, but that's certainly not going to bring me millions and glory. So, but periodically, I guess this sort of touches on what we were saying about flexibility and resilience. I know who I am and I know what my values are, and I can always come back to my North Star. I don't,
Hmm.
there's, it- I have, I always, these things shake me up when stress happens or good things happen, or I start wondering, am I doing things, the right way or whatever? They shake me up, but I always can come back to myself and say, this is me. And then it's okay.
Right.
So that's where I really want people to be able to go with dizziness or any other symptoms, to always be able to come back to themselves, to their North Star, and just know the story is literally just a story. They're right here, right now. And that's much more anchoring than any story could possibly be. I went off on a philosophical rant. I'm sorry.
Mm-mm. No,
So,
you did not.
but I totally hear you. And that it is not a good business model, because you actually, and I actually both educate people for free, and then also just want them to get better and just go and not have to
Hmm.
manage or regulate anything. What really drives me crazy is when I see these posts, and this is why I don't go on social media, because it upsets me so much. Here's how you regulate your nervous system, and your nervous system is dysregulated. Is nervous system dysregulation the reason that you have blah, 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 blah? I'm like, this fear mongering, it sells. I get it. It sells, and people want to fix themselves, but it's just not the right way. It's not the right way to do things.
Yeah, but yeah, your nervous system does regulate, but not because you did the worksheet, not because you did a lot of things.
Yeah,
They become compulsive behaviors. Do I think
they
a
can.
lot of
Yep,
that it's well intended from therapists?
absolutely.
Yes. Do I think some of it's a sales grab? Yes. I think most of the therapeutic world is trying really hard to help people get better. But if it's not seen as this OCD type template, we're just feeding more people things to
Yep.
do, and we're just developing more doing disorders. And like my job is to teach you how to do less, not more. And that's how you grow tolerance for something. You don't grow tolerance for something by tolerating through it. You know, you tolerance for something by being softer and open to it. And the mindset is more of unimportance and irrelevance, not did it work, is it gone?
Yeah.
So, Dr. Yo, where can everybody find you and follow you and get all your information?
Yeah, so primarily my YouTube channel, The Steady Coach. They can find me on YouTube. I'll send you the link as well. And I post new videos every week, usually on Sundays. I have so much content at this point. It's ridiculous. I have over 50 success stories of people recovering, and that is one of the most important things I do. I show you it's possible, because when I started my YouTube channel, if you had Googled PPPD recovery, there was nothing. The only thing that would come up
Mm.
was you can't recover. So now when you
Jeez.
Google it, yeah, oh, I'm not even kidding. So I have corrected that with my YouTube channel. So that is now something people find when they Google this particular
Good.
term. So that, and then I have informational videos and meditations and all sorts of stuff. I also have an Instagram that I sometimes remember to update. So people could follow me there, but sometimes I remember to update it.
And we'll post all that in the description below and all the links and everything.
Wonderful.
I am so glad you joined us here. I think people will really appreciate the content here to see how these worlds very much overlap, if not, more than overlap. And we'll have to do this regularly.
This was so fun. Thank you. It was such a fun conversation. It was not just an interview. The first time we met, I was like, oh, we are obviously on the same page. So it
Very
was just
flowy.
yes, very flowy. Exactly.
So thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you soon.